We've started to get a bit more news in regards to exits at Manchester United, and it looks like a surprise breakthrough for Jadon Sancho to Juventus could be on its way. In my live stream earlier today, I was talking about a report coming out that Jadon Sancho was close to accepting in new terms with Juventus and taking a wage cut, and more information is coming that confirming that Sancho to Juventus is close. On top of that, Real Betis have made a new bid for Antony. We're going to talk about the latest in regards to the situation on that. We've also got updates on Richard Rios, Watkins, Hojlund set to stay, and more. But we're going to focus on the outs. We'll then talk about the ins. Let's not mention Mbumo this stream if we can. And yeah, let's get into it. So if you do enjoy today's 10-minute roundup, feel free to hit that like button and of course subscribe down below if you're new. So let's start with this Jadon Sancho story. Also, I've changed a few things. I've changed Wi-Fi. I've changed a few settings on my laptop. So I'm hoping this comes out clearer. But if it doesn't, I'm going to be fuming. So just let me know your thoughts down below. I'm really hoping it's going to come out clearer. Anyway, let's talk about what's come out from Sky Sports, first of all. Jadon Sancho is open to joining Juventus with talks described as positive. Now, we know that he's kind of always been open to joining Juventus, which is why Fenerbahce never pushed ahead for Jadon Sancho, because it was sort of clear his preference was Juventus. The big question is he open to lowering his wages to join Juventus, which some sources in Italy were suggesting earlier today. Sky Sports did say, look, there's still some work to be done in regards to finalising the fee, which isn't expected to be an issue, and personal terms, which has been the issue. There's still a bit of work to do, but all parties seem willing to make a deal happen. So now Sky Sports are saying that all parties seem willing to make a deal happen. Is that a suggestion that Jadon Sancho might actually be willing to lower his wage demands to make a deal more likely to happen? Do you know what I mean? Is Jadon Sancho going to be lowering his wage demands now? Because Juventus want the deal, Man United want the deal, Sancho wants the deal, but Sancho knows he's not going to get the deal unless he lowers his wage demands. Is Sancho willing to make this happen by lowering his wage demands? Which we spoke about in my live stream earlier today. There was reports from Italy, or I don't even know if it was Italy, it was from a source that I wasn't familiar with, that, you know, Sancho was willing to accept maybe lower wage demands now, but we're waiting for more credible confirmation. A couple more credible sources are coming out, and they've not said necessarily that personal terms have been agreed or that Sancho has done this or done that, but the suggestions that it's close. Alfredo Padella was on Mix Channel, MUFC Realist TV, and he said a full agreement between Sancho and Juventus is now close. The deal will accelerate in the next few days. Juventus and United are aligned with the 25 million fee. So now we're getting reports coming out that a deal between Sancho and Juventus is close, which obviously that's good. That's more indication, obviously backing up the story earlier. That came out as well. So obviously we want Sancho to be moved on. Sky Sports saying there's optimism. Padella is now saying a full agreement, and that's interesting. He said a full agreement between Sancho and Juventus is close, and if we can get that agreement done, that's the hard bit done. It's not about Juventus paying up, it's about getting Sancho to lower his wage demands. And as I said, and I'm going to get the story I was talking about that I covered in my live stream earlier today up for context, because I forgot what the source was called and I feel like I was very vague. But this was the story I reported on in my live stream earlier today in regards to Sancho, that he might be willing to take a wage cut, was the suggestion here. Sancho is now willing to reduce his wage demand to join Juventus, was what had come out earlier this morning that we covered. So that's a positive indication that we look like we're about to get a surprise breakthrough in regards to Jadon Sancho's exit, and things could finally move. The Marzi also came out and said that there has been some positive contact between Sancho and Juventus. So it looks like things could finally be moving in regards to outs. But let's get into some other updates. Is it going to be a permanent deal? Is it going to be a swap deal? Because we're now getting suggestions that it could be a swap deal. Coming out again, Douglas Luiz is apparently a profile we like. He could become key to a Sancho deal. The deal will also depend on Consal, who is not yet certain of staying at Juve. Juventus intend to sell him. So, you know, if Sancho agrees to a deal with Juventus, it might not be a simple Juventus will pay up 25 million, which has been suggested. Maybe it's things like, okay, but Juventus need to make sure this player gets out and that player gets out. Maybe United are looking at Douglas Luiz. Interestingly, Juventus have reportedly booked in Jonathan David's medical, so they're making some movement there. Are they thinking they're going to get Douglas Luiz off the wage bill? Are they thinking they could be doing a swap with Man United? It could be one to watch. Ideally, I just want 25 million for Sancho, and I want him gone. I want him out. That's what I'd want. That's what I ideally want. 25 million, get out of here. But look, if a swap deal was what we need to get Sancho out, I'm not against it. I do think Douglas Luiz was a little bit overrated. And I said I said that in the past. I think Camara, Anana, and Tielemans were all better than him at Villa. But again, he's probably better than what we've got in midfield. Vlahovic again is on ridiculous wages, but I'm at the point now where, Sancho, if there's going to be a surprise breakthrough and he's about to agree a deal with Juventus, which is now being reported, and we need to get him out, let's see if Juventus pay up. If not, I might be willing to accept this. Let me know your thoughts down below. I just want some movement. I'm fed up. You wouldn't believe that Manchester United have finished 15th last season with how slow we're acting. We're acting as if we finished 5th last season. Arsenal fans are getting annoyed, but Arsenal finished 2nd and they're slowly starting to do their business. We finished 15th. Look at Manchester City. We laughed at them. Manchester City had their worst season in ages and they've gone out and brought a load of players already. We finished 15th, far worse than Manchester City, who still got Champions League football. And yeah, we're moving slow. And I get it's about saving a little bit of money, not being mugged off. Obviously, City at the Club World Cup, but I'm getting fed up. And even outs. I just want some outs. We haven't got an out yet. Now, obviously, I think the easiest player to get out is Antony because of Antony's willingness to take a wage cut, but also the fact that Betis really want Antony, Manchester United want Antony to go. Everyone involved wants this Antony deal to happen. So I feel like this is going to be the easiest deal to do and sort out. Now, reports coming out of Seville, which obviously will come through Seville's mouthpiece, is that Real Betis did submit a bid to re-sign Antony on loan with a mandatory purchase, which I think is obligation, right? Does mandatory mean obligation? I think it does in 2026. His wages are an obstacle and Betis want Man United to contribute. For the deal to progress, Betis also secured personal terms of Antony as reps. English sources are pretty much suggesting Antony will take a wage cut to go to Betis. Personal terms isn't an issue. They're waiting for Betis to bid. Betis bids aren't good enough. Betis sources are saying they've submitted this bid, they've submitted that bid. Antony's wages are an obstacle. They're waiting for Antony to get personal terms. I don't know if Betis are trying to please their fans. I don't know. Betis want Antony. Antony wants Betis. Antony's willing to take a wage cut. Man United want to sell Antony. Betis don't quite have the money to go and buy Antony, but they're looking for a way to make it work. I feel this deal will happen. I feel Antony will go. And I believe that maybe Betis have made a new bid for Antony, and it might be him go out on loan for another year, and they defer the payment for a year. But as long as it's not a Jadon Sancho loan, and it's saying obligation, there's no way of getting out of it loan, I'm okay with Antony going on loan another year. But ideally, I'd like the money now because we kind of need the money now because we're not in the richest scenario. In regards to other updates coming in as well, Mick and Alfredo Padella did speak about Richard Rios. They said Manchester United is seriously considering Richard Rios, as exclusively reported by Padella and Mick. The clubs view him as a good alternative for Edison with a potential fee of 20 to 25 million. Obviously, he's focusing on the Club World Cup now, but this could be one to watch. Manchester United have had some interest in Richard Rios. We do want to sign a midfielder. We know that. It is get Mbeumo over the line, who I said I wasn't going to mention in today's video, and I have. I just can't go a video without mentioning him. Sell some players, sign a striker, move for a midfielder is the game plan. Also, the striker we've been looking at is Gyökeres seems to be the number one choice, but he could be Arsenal bound. The other option we've been looking at, of course, is Ollie Watkins. United have interest in Watkins. There was reports coming out yesterday that Watkins is open to the move. United now starting to step up their interest in Watkins. Villa value want around 60 million for Watkins, but United are unwilling to pay that much given his age, lack of resale value. Obviously, for me, 45 million plus 5, which is 50 million total, was probably the most I'd go for Watkins. I like the player, but you've got to be careful with his age, all of that. But we have interest in Villa. Villa wants 60 million. That's going to be difficult. Reports came out yesterday that the player's open to the move. But we do know from Laurie Whitwell, and Laurie Whitwell came out today on the Talk of the Devils podcast and said that Hojlund's more likely to stay at Man United this summer as it stands. There was interest from Inter Milan, but they only wanted to do a loan. Man United only wanted to do a sale. We know that Hojlund himself is kind of happy to stay. And Laurie Whitwell is suggesting it's more likely that Hojlund will stay at United than leave. And I think for an Ollie Watkins deal to happen, we probably more likely need Hojlund to leave. I'm not saying he has to leave for us to sign a striker, because United have not been very clear on if he has to leave or not for us to sign a striker. But I think him leaving increases our chances of signing a striker. And I think if Hojlund stays, it will be harder to bring in an expensive striker. So yeah, that is basically a roundup of all your latest United news. I'm open to Douglas Luiz, especially with our midfield issues at the moment. He's not my number one midfielder, but I'm open for it. Kind of want Sancho gone. Kind of want Sancho out the door. Let's hope we get a Mbeumo deal done today. Who knows? Thank you for watching, and bye.